Hello? I don't think this is on. Good evening. Can you hear me all right? With or without the microphone, I think? I think it's without as well. Well, no problem. I'll just project, unless...
There's also a microphone.
Yeah. Oh, well, here we are. Perfect. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the John Adams Institute. My name is Ian Kenny. I'm the Program and Development Coordinator at the John Adams, and I am so thrilled that you could be with us tonight at the Brakke Grond. Tonight is a special one for me personally, as we have the pleasure of welcoming one of my own literary heroes, Miriam Toews. Miriam is the award-winning author of numerous books, including Women Talking and All My Puny Sorrows. And when I was younger, I tore through Miriam's book, A Complicated Kindness, on a summer day, and since then have been absolutely amazed by her deft ability to contour difficult topics with a light and even playful tone. It makes her books eminently readable and enjoyable as well. But aside from being a Canadian literary icon, Miriam and I are also alumni of the same tiny little liberal arts school, the University of King's College. So when Tracy Metz, the director of the John Adams Institute, brought in an article several months ago with Miriam from the Financial Times and said, "Hey, wouldn't it be amazing if we could get this woman here?" I, perhaps overconfidently at the time, piped up and said, "Yeah, I can make that happen." And thanks to Miriam, we were able to do exactly that. So it's absolutely wonderful to have another King's alum in the room. Halifax, where the university is located, is really perfect training for coming to Amsterdam, for any of you that have been there. It's nestled on Canada's Atlantic coast, and it is a city that could certainly give Amsterdam a run for its money in terms of brooding, somber weather. Thankfully, we had a reprieve from that today. Miriam studied journalism there, and though we didn't overlap in our studies, Miriam absolutely left a mark on the college. And so I'm chuffed, really, that we were able to coax her over to this side of the pond to be with us this evening for the Dutch release of her latest novel, Fight Night, and to discuss how her work has been translated as well onto the big screen. Special thanks this evening are certainly owed to Cossé Publishers, Uitgeverij Cossé, who have translated Miriam's book into Dutch. We are really grateful for your partnership and to make this visit happen, and we look forward to many more such visits as well. Miriam's books are, of course, on sale tonight, thanks to our partners at the Atheneum Bookstore, who have been coming to John Adams events forever and a day, I'd say. And if you don't have your own copy yet, please do consider buying one tonight. They make a wonderful Christmas gift for the intrepid reader, of course, and your family, and we all know that that time of year is coming up. And if you speak Dutch, even if only a little bit, I would urge you to buy the Dutch language edition. Doing so supports not only the work of the wonderful folks at Cossé, but also the John Adams, right? Because partnerships like these around the release of the Dutch edition of a book make all of this possible. So tonight, Miriam will be interviewed by Dutch journalist Laila Frank, who has, I believe, become a little bit of a Miriam Toews fan since we put her on this kind of track earlier this year. And Laila and Miriam actually write about similar topics, though they do so in very different styles and from different perspectives. But central to both of their work are, I would say, questions about the rights and positions of women in society, alongside analyzing the role that people and power structures play in trying to keep them down. So in short, I would say that Miriam and Laila are an excellent match, maybe one even made in heaven. So with that, So with that, I would like to hand over the floor to Laila Frank to introduce Miriam and her work and to set the stage for the rest of the evening. I'll be back to talk to you later before we all head out to the book sales with more John Adams updates. So, Laila, the floor is yours.
Made in heaven, that's a first. Thank you for that. That was an evil laugh. I love it. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Very good to see you all in this very intimate, lovely venue. Where to start? Can reading one book make me feel like 3 generations of women at once? My 9-year-old self, a vivid memory, washing my grandmother's walls of flesh that are her back with a sponge in the bathtub, feeling safe and like climbing a mountain at the same time. The middle-aged woman that I am, trying to keep it all together, because middle-age, to quote author Eulabis, middle age is maintenance. Sorry, it is. And my inner 80-something-year-old that doesn't give a flying fuck about expectations and norms and all the BS and is just riding the wave into eternity with a big smile. Yes, amen. I guess, heaven, amen. It's a night like that. Can a book make me feel like these three women at once? The answer is yes, and it's called Fight Night. It's an exhilarating, funny, and moving tribute to the matrilineal bond among three women of different generations in one Toronto household, emphasizing the ways in which joy can be a form of resistance. The story is told through the eyes of 9-year-old Swift, kicked out of school for fighting and being homeschooled by her grandmother, Elvira, whose educational philosophy entails classes about the real important stuff, like poaching eggs and how to dig a winter grave. Two things I have not mastered yet, so it's never too late. Swift's mother is battling demons and the third trimester of a pregnancy, and Elvira, Swift's grandmother, has fought all her life for independence and her spirit and her children. And Swift is learning how to live, and therewith fight. It's a book that reads like a really big declaration of love to the resilience of women and to the women in Miriam's life, to her family, which we will also talk about. Full disclosure, I was not familiar with Miriam's work at all, until Ian there put me on the right track during the spring of last year. I caught up pretty quickly, and here are a couple of reasons why. There is something about the absurdity and complexity of life in general, and of the experience of a life as a woman in particular, that Miriam captures like no other. Grandma puts it like this: to be alive means full body contact with the absurd. Still, we can be happy. And there's a depth to the voices she gives, a complexity that is layered with a sense of humor and with the light and the dark of life. She captures what it means to be a woman in this day and age, in visible and invisible patriarchal power structures, and the dilemma of being a woman. Can I ever make the right choice? She is a wizard with language and words, and this book in particular, because it is the language of a 100-month-old girl, as Swift likes to address her age. I whispered into her fat, she said, about her grandmother that she was trying to hug. I can relate to that. Meryl Streep once said, and I paraphrase, that we as women, we speak men. It's just the language we have learned to understand and work with to survive. To go short, Miriam Toews speaks the language of women, and equally important, she speaks the language of life. If you're familiar with Miriam's work, you are familiar with the big themes in her life, because they're always present in her books. Mental illness, suicide, growing up in a Mennonite colony, breaking with the religion, leaving everything you know and you love, motherhood at a young age, forgiveness, and resilience. But then there's also stuff you might not know, but it's fun to tell, or that I like to think is telling. I just learned tonight that her daughter is a Beyonce fan, but she's a really big fan of Succession. The book she's ashamed she hasn't read is The Mennonite Treasury, a cookbook that she got from her Aunt Mary that includes a lot of recipes with ammonia. She lives in one of the 3 coldest places on the earth. She has a big sticker on her laptop that says, Ted Hughes killed Sylvia Plath. She lives on the same property with 4 generations in one family. So her mother on the ground floor, her daughter and her family upstairs, and she and her husband Eric in the garden. I wanted to say shed, but that's not true, like a garden house. If she were to throw a dinner party and she could invite deceived authors, she would invite Roberto Bolaño, Natalia Ginsburg, and Svetlana Alexievich. The LA Times wrote, Fight Night is like the Ted Lasso of novels, if this reference speaks to you, but she wouldn't know because she doesn't read reviews. Also, she prefers conversations over giving a keynote. So I suggest that we do exactly that. Let's have a conversation. And don't be shy. I mean, I'm assuming you know her work or are fangirls and boys, or if that's not a word that, well, whatever. You came here because you wanted to hear Miriam speak. So let's do that. I will invite you to join our conversation. Let's make it the type of night that Grandma would enjoy. And we're gonna roughly part the conversation into two parts. So we'll start talking about fight night and about being a writer, and then somewhere midway we are gonna watch the Women Talking extended trailer, and then talk more about that line of work and about cinema and books and all the good stuff. More than enough of me. Miriam, please, will you join us?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You are very welcome. Let's get some water first. How are you feeling?
Very, very good. Thank you very much. Very loud, actually. I'm feeling very loud. Am I too loud?
No, I think you're good.
Okay.
Are you a loud person?
Yes, I have become a loud person since I live with my mother, who's 88 and very, very hard of hearing. We just scream all the time, and I always forget not to. Often, I'm often screaming. Anyway, yeah.
God, I wish I could look into that household. Oh no, I feel like I kind of do with the books you write. And let's start with your family. You have dedicated this novel, Fight Night, to your grandkids.
Yeah.
What did you want to tell them?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know how many, I guess I have 4 grandchildren now, and they sort of, came in quick succession. So, they're 6 and 5 and 2 and 2. And that happened so quickly. And I had finished writing Women Talking, and I knew that I wanted to, write something, for my grandchildren. Obviously, I wanted it to be something that would, resonate with other people too, and be for other people. But, and I wanted to write something about my own mother, because she is a certain person in our lives, and sort of larger than life character, and she's old, and her health is not good, and my grandchildren are little, and they may not necessarily know her or remember her when, and I wanted to kind of, describe her a little bit. And I also wanted to write about some of the, some of the hard stuff that's happened in my family, in their family. You had talked about mental illness and suicide, and because these little kids, they'll grow up and they'll have questions. Who are these people that I'm named after, for instance, or or whatever it is, and what happened to them, and where are they? So I wanted to kind of, and I wanted to write from a kid's point of view. That's something that I've always wanted to do and had never done, and so, Fight Night.
So, because you wanted to tell your grandchildren about your mom, mm-hmm. and by writing a book like that, do you get to know your mother better or differently? Or
that's a good question. Maybe by writing I think I get to know her better. I think I get to know I guess with all of my books, I mean, they're all of the characters are sort of loosely or not loosely based on people that I know, and I feel that, and that's part of the reason, one of the reasons for writing the book is to get to know these people in my life better, my curiosity about them, my fascination with them, and then to sort of, give them characters and a kind of fictional representation. But I did get to know my mother better, and I came to, realize, and I think I already had, realized it to a certain extent, but just how incredibly, how important she is in our family, how her resilience, her ability to fight, and not just fight, not just resist, not just, empower herself and others around, and not just to stand her ground, not just the sort of conventional aspects of fighting, but also the way that she does it with such, joy and playfulness, and also her ability to know when not to fight, when to stop fighting, when to surrender, essentially, and which I think is just as important a kind of lesson, you know, for us as it is to know when to fight and how to fight.
Is writing a book like this, or maybe writing a book in general, is that a fight? Would you call that a fight, or would you?
I think so. I think it seems as though the older I get, you know, I think we all, I mean, we're always fighting all the time. You know, in a sense, I mean, for the most part, probably with ourselves, you know, you know, the system, you know, fighting to be understood by ourselves and by others, fighting for, you know, a voice, agency, freedom, whatever it is. I think that fighting against the, you know, artificiality of life, of society, you know, trying to find honesty, fighting for the truth. It just seems like so much of life is kind of, you know, combat adjacent. And yeah, I think that, and for writing, and to answer your question, writing is definitely a battle often, you know, because you kind of have an idea of what it is that you want to say, but you never really get there, you know. So
do you never get there, or
no.
I mean, there's a time. No, you never get there.
No, never, ever. I mean, never, you know. And that's I mean, but that's what it is to be alive, right? I mean, we try and understand things about life, the meaning of life, ourselves. We try and understand our place in the world, you know, what it is to be human, but we never really fully do. And I think writing is you know, we can get closer and we can circle around, and at least the main thing is that we're asking ourselves these questions, you know, and maybe getting closer to some answer, maybe some truth or some, you know, revelation, but I don't think that we ever really fully do. I don't, you know.
So when do you decide when to stop, or when to
yeah,
when do you stop?
When to throw
fight?
in the towel?
Yeah,
when
right?
to stop fighting? Yeah.
When it comes to a book,
yeah, when it comes to a book, yeah.
So when did you know that Fight Night was done? It was over. That you wrote the last word, sentence.
That's you know, I don't know. I mean, I think there's just kind of, in writing, at least for me, a kind of natural trajectory, you know, that just, I think with every one of my books is more or less the same length. For instance, it seems like I'm only capable of writing a novel that is 200 plus words, or, you know, close to 300.
I appreciate that.
Hey, yeah, you know, like there are people who write short stories and people who write poetry, and I write novels that are that length. I mean, I think that it's just, that's how long it takes me, you know, I don't know, to attempt to say what I want to say, even though, of course, I always fail to do that. But it's, and then I think it just is, it sort of comes on you like a, you know, like a message from God. We're talking a lot about heaven.
Is it a religious experience?
It's
right?
a religious experience. It is. That sounds so cheesy, but in a sense, it's true. You just kind of go, and it's done, you know. And now I'll rest. Not to compare myself to the creation
Sunday, right?
of 7 days. Yeah, it's not a godlike, but no. But it's, yeah. And then you just kind of know. You just have that. You just have a sense that it's done, and that's such a good moment.
Yeah. And because we're drifting off towards the process of writing, which I do want to talk about a little more, but I also want to talk about fighting. Can I see a show of hands who's read it or is reading it? Yeah, there's also a lot of people who don't know about it. I mean, when it comes to writing, you made a couple of choices, I guess, or there's a couple of specificities about writing this book. So, for example, you narrate it through the eyes of a 9-year-old. Which, like, how do you get in? How do you become the 9-year-old, and how do you tap into that language or a way of thinking or seeing things? Do you walk through a grocery store being a 9-year-old? Like, how does it work?
No. Yeah, stealing stuff.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm just doing research.
Maybe 9-year-olds don't do that. But, no. it was certainly to find that voice. The voice of a 9-year-old was the biggest challenge with this book, absolutely. I had always wanted to write a book from the point of view of a kid. And
Why?
I just had never, I just thought it would be fun. And
I think that's a good reason.
you know, something different. And I hadn't done it, and so it's a certain way, of course, you know, like I think the voice of this book is the book, like the voice is the story, her way of seeing the world, and then of, you know, relating that or articulating that. It's a specific thing, you know. So if you're reading something, you know, written from a 9-year-old's point of view, I mean, you know that what you're getting is, I mean, it's different than, you know, the observations that she makes, the lies, in a sense, that she tells about, or, you know, extensions of that she tells about herself, her family, her observations, the comic exaggeration, you know, and then little tiny indirect glimpses into her own troubled little soul and mind. I mean, she's a troubled, anxious kid, fearful, not as tough as she likes to make out. So there are all those challenges, of course, in the voice, you know, to convey all of that. And I think for this book and for other books with my protagonists or narrators, it's not writing about them. It is really, becoming them. You know, playing that role, becoming
method actor.
Exactly. Yeah, and really just staying in it and remembering myself at 9.
Were you like this at 9, or what part of you at age 9 is in here?
I think a lot. I think absolutely a lot. I think that the circumstances of my life were not the same as Swiv's. But I think at 9, I remember being, 8. I remember being 7 and 8 and a little kid and thinking, I've got this, this life, it's fine, everything, I'm good. Like I felt like I was, I was just, the world was my oyster, and I was in charge of my life, and I knew what was what, and I felt good and at home and free and happy. And then I turned 9. And, it's sort of like a switch, kind of, you start, I don't know, I guess it's just maturity in a sense. I mean, you start, maybe for me anyway, at 9, you see things and you think like, what the fuck is going on in this place? Like this is, I'm in hell. And who are these people? And, what are they saying? And, you can observe you see the hypocrisy, the suffering, and all the specific kind of manifestations of oppression that I saw in my community, particularly when it came to girls, women, and you start seeing that at 9, and all of that kind of fearlessness and playfulness is tempered a little bit.
Do you really have a vivid memory of you being 9-year-old, sort of understanding all of a sudden, seeing that kind of repression?
Yeah, and I also remember that, it was around that age, when my mother started to tell me things about what was going on, like, in the community and the sort of expectations that existed there, not in my own family necessarily, but in the community, in the church, and what that would mean. And I sort of became aware of how she was resisting that, and of how she was, teaching me how to also resist that.
Because maybe you have to elaborate a little bit on the specific position of your family within the colony that gave a little more leeway or liberty to have these kinds of discussions. Yeah,
like I would say that, I grew up in a Mennonite community, very, very conservative, fundamentalist, patriarchal, authoritarian, a culture of control. It was all of those things, and it wasn't a traditional Mennonite colony like the one in Women Talking, but the same, rules, essentially the same kind of, roles for men and women in a sense, just not as conservative. but conservative enough. And I think that my family itself was an anomaly within that community. My parents were liberal, they were educated, they encouraged my sister and I to think for ourselves, to you know, express ourselves, to read, to you know, to get an education. And certainly my mother did. My father was a little bit more afraid of the outside world, I guess you could say. So, you know, I always felt protected by that, by, you know, my mother especially defending me from that, you know, the powers that be within my community, particularly the church, you know, but you know, other aspects too. I mean, school, everything, you know, where the expectations for us were certainly, you know, rigid.
Yeah. So 9-year-old, your first glimpse into the real world, I would say. Like when the button goes on, you can turn it off anymore. That type of moment. And that is a lot of the 9-year-old that we read in the book. Mm-hmm. There obviously is a very clear link to your mother, Elvira, who is very much present in this book. Did you read it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she's my biggest fan. She
so cool. But is she like, does she read it when it's done, or is she reading it, like, do you let her read it while you're still... Oh, okay.
No. No, she reads it. There was one book that I wrote. It was a book about, like, it was kind of a nonfiction sort of book. Again, you know, a sort of exception within my books. And that book was, you know, really like full on, you know, about my family. It was about my father, really, mostly. And so I gave that book before it was published to my mother and my sister at the time, and who maybe she's my sister, and for their opinion. I wanted to know if they were okay with it, you know, because nothing is worth writing. I mean, if, you know, I didn't want to upset them. So, but that was that book. This one, no. My mom, she reads mostly, you know, whodunits, like whodunits, is that like crime novels, you know, and thrillers, or not thrillers, but, you know, detective. And so every few years when I have my literary fiction out, she's forced to, you know, read the, yeah. yeah.
You seem a little embarrassed about it in a way, but...
About my books?
No,
I'm very, I'm ashamed.
I hope not. No, about your mom reading it, or...
Yeah. No, I mean, it's just, no, I'm not embarrassed about it. I'm just, it's just, just the question, you know, like, just the idea of, I'm not embarrassed about the question. I'm just the idea of, I guess it made it seem as though I was forcing my family to read my stuff, you know, which I didn't want to, yeah.
No, you very clearly said she's your biggest fan, she reads Whodunit and Fight Night. So that's
but I mean, she's my mother, you know, she is gonna, you know, I'm my kid's biggest fan too. I mean, you know, it's sort of like she will always say, you know, this is the best thing I've ever read, you know, like this kind of, you know, I mean, that's.
Yeah. And
you can't trust her.
Okay, got that. So you once said in an interview, I think, that you consider all your writing one big book, as in that all the characters that are important in your life come back one way or another in every book.
Yeah.
I was wondering if that's the same. If the same goes for the men in your life, because I see a lot of female family members. But Eric is here. Where's Eric?
He's still here.
He's still here. Eric, are you in the book?
Yeah, All My Puny Sorrows. Yeah.
You're in All My Puny Sorrows. Okay.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Are you in this book?
I don't think so.
Is he in this book?
No.
Okay, you're not.
No.
You're good here.
No.
But I guess you are in every book as well. I was wondering, because you said that you got to know your mother better by writing this book. What did you get to know yourself better?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that's a sort of, you know, one of the byproducts of writing anything, of getting deep into character, because of writing something that is hopefully as, emotionally honest. I think, yeah, I think that absolutely in the act of writing, for sure, there would probably have existed some more glimpses into my own psyche, or, to understand myself better. I mean, but I feel that, and it's crazy to admit at my age, and I've been doing it for so long, but that every time I get a little bit close to maybe understanding myself a little bit better, and I think, oh yeah, okay.
Now we're done?
Yeah, okay. And then the next day, I'm like, what? Where did that go? It's gone. I'm back to square one.
So what did this book in particular teach you?
I would say, and this is kind of obvious, but that we must fight. That I have been fighting all of my life, and it's not like I want to be fighting, but that life has, being life has meant that, I am fighting and against a lot of stuff that I guess, and in particular, it's a feminist fight, I suppose, you could say, and it's something that I feel like I've been, engaged in for all of my life, from day one, and that will never stop.
So if we're talking feminist fight, I feel that we're at a time where masculinity is a big theme, where retribution is a big theme, also politically. You also write about forgiveness. You write about our fight. How do you rhyme these two? Or I guess the question is, where do we stand with that fight in this day and age?
Yeah, I mean, the idea of forgiveness is a sort of beautiful idea, but I'm not sure that I fully believe in it. Because, I believe in... of course I do, when it comes to certain things, but patriarchal violence or sexual violence or domestic violence or, any of the types of violence that women suffer, it's not something that you forgive. And forgiveness, it's a religious concept. It's easy to, and particularly, the culture that I come from, to say, how wonderful it is to forgive the women and women talking, for instance. The onus is on them to forgive the men, okay, I forgive you, therefore now I can go to heaven just like you can because you've been forgiven, and I can go to heaven because I have had the grace to forgive you. And so, and then of course nothing changes. Everything continues to go on, and in the horrific ways that it did, and so, so of course I can't believe in that. But we need to come to an understanding of why these things happen, and an understanding of why they keep happening. And even in this day and age, when we feel that we've come so far in terms of women's rights, or creating a safe world for women, for men to understand that violence isn't acceptable. All of these things that we feel that we've managed to learn and to have achieved along the way. We haven't actually. So do we just forgive? No.
So if we haven't, then where are we right now?
Right. Yeah, your guess is as good as mine. I guess we're just in it, We're just in it. We just keep on keeping on, And that sounds so pat, and I don't mean for it to sound that way. We have to continue to talk. We have to continue to fight. We have to continue to demand. you know, certain things, and to know and to accept that we as human beings, men, you know, and women too, we can change, you know, and we can be educated, and we can be safe.
Safe. Okay. I'm not there yet.
No.
I want to be there, but we're not there yet. And so is your writing do you consider your writing an act of activism or political activity?
No.
Or no?
No. I mean, if others do, then fair enough, but no, that's never something that I've never ever, no. It's storytelling, and it's, you know.
Powerful weapon, though, stories.
Yes. Words, yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to, are there any questions at this point in time? Because then please do feel free. And if not, then we are continuing the conversation, which is perfectly fine too. I was wondering, Miriam, I know you've had a couple of interviews already today, and you've done like 1,000, and is there anything that nobody really ever asks you about and you feel is important to share about your writing, or maybe about Fight Night?
Well, you've really caught me off guard. I don't know. I don't know.
Miriam and I were talking over dinner about ChatGPT, and if Miriam ever uses AI, no, of course not. Or, well,
I don't know how to. I mean, I'm curious.
Yeah, you didn't just.
I guess
we can talk about that later. Okay. But and I told her that I asked ChatGPT to come up with some questions for Miriam Toews, and that they were kind of boring. But this question actually came from, I was reading Stephen King's On Writing.
Oh yeah, that's a good book.
Yeah, it is actually. And Stephen King apparently is in a band with fellow writers who are also musicians, and they talk about writing.
What are they called? The Remainder Bin? No. Is that a different group of writers?
Don't remember. But and then they talk about writing, and then he asks the rest of the group, is there anything that anybody never asks you about when it comes to the writing? And then they're all like, yeah, the writing itself and the craft of it. So that's actually where the question came from. But you can't relate.
Yeah, I mean, about the craft? You mean to be being asked about the craft?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I get that question.
You do?
Often, yes, about the craft. And it is, I love talking about writing. I love talking about the craft of writing.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
So let's talk about the craft of writing.
So, I mean, the craft of writing, I mean, why do we do, you know, just...
I don't know, why do you?
I don't know.
Really, don't you? I mean,
I love talking about the craft of writing, but I'm like, I don't know what to say about it. I like it when other people talk about it.
Well, I have something to ask about it.
Yeah, I don't know why. I mean, like writing, you know, okay, so, you know, to make sense of things, to, you know, purge oneself of, you know, demons, and to just try to craft narrative, but, you know, and to entertain, of course, you know. I don't know. But you know, I mean, it's something that we just do as human beings, just even orally. I mean, we tell stories. That's how we connect with other people. You know, I'm going to tell you this story, and I hope that you can relate. And if you do, then I feel that I'm not so alone in this world. You know, like that's what we do as writers and readers.
And because you actually give Swiv an assignment to tell a story in this book. So the assignment for Swiv is to write a letter to her father, who's walked out on her pregnant mother. Why a letter? Because that's also a very deliberate choice in the setup of the book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, another thing that I had always wanted to do, to write about an epistolary, but this is just one kind of long, sort of unwieldy letter, but it is a letter to her father, her missing father. She's just talking about her life, and I think that a letter is for the voice, particularly for a 9-year-old. I mean, it made like so a thing actually about. Okay, maybe speaking of craft, you know, the craft of writing. Anyway, for me, I have always had to create a reason for writing. you know, for writing something. Like I've never really, I've found it very difficult, in fact impossible, to just say, okay, now I'm writing this book and there always has to be, even if it's not something that is in the book, that is, you know, obvious in the book or overt, it's something that is in my mind as I'm writing, that this is the reason. So, okay, so my character has to write a letter, you know, has been given an assignment, in fact. You know, and I've done that in other books too. In A Complicated Kindness, you know, the entire book is a school assignment. You know, or in you know, a book that I wrote called Irma Voth. It's you know, the protagonist is given a notebook and told to write some things down, you know, about her experiences, and that's always the sort of center. That's always the catalyst for me, is that assignment that I give myself as a writer, which then I transfer to my character, to my narrator, and then I can do it, you know, because otherwise I don't know if I would, then I have in that way, in that process, given myself permission to write it because it's something that has been assigned, even, you know, to me, by me, but still.
So you always give it...
Yeah, it could be about guilt. Did you say guilt?
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be about guilt. It could be about just the idea of, like, who the hell do I think I am, just writing a book? I mean, you know, I grew up certainly without that expectation, you know, and now you, yeah, will be a novelist. No. So, you know, it was, yeah, I think, yeah, guilt, and possibly just... permission, you know, permission to do it, to just sit by myself in a room for a year and a half, 2 years, and, you know, make shit up about my family, basically, you know. You know, some real things in there as well, obviously, but yeah, I don't know. It seemed like a ridiculous thing to do, like, and also a sort of antisocial kind of self-indulgent thing to do. Often, to me, it does.
Writing,
even though writing is something that, I mean, it's the thing that gives me the greatest, you know, one of the greatest joys in life, happiness, books, something that I need to survive. Can't imagine a life without reading, as I'm sure all the rest of you feel the same. It's, you know, and still though, there is that, you know, whether it's because I'm a woman or, you know, a Mennonite or whatever it is, you know, always sort of starting the process of writing a book with a kind of mental gymnastics in that there's the assignment and the need, and that I have to do it.
Is there a new mental challenge going on? I mean, are you working on a new book? It's actually the question.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's a new mental challenge going on. Yeah, exactly. It's even a physical challenge. I mean, even just sitting there is hard.
Yeah, do you? I mean, sure, you're sitting on a table, but do you have a ritual when you write a book?
Yeah, definitely. I have. I mean, yes, I suppose there. You know, yeah.
No.
Do you want to hear it? Is this boring?
Yes, I do.
You know, I get up.
Okay, good start.
Yeah, make myself a ton of coffee, and which is like, it's a little bit less now. I see, you know, this aging thing. So I'm not drinking quite as much coffee, and you know, I'll read some news. Always bad, isn't it? And I do the Sudoku. I steal it from my mother. I take it from her. She gets to do the crossword puzzle. We just get one newspaper delivered to the houses, the compound, and I do the Sudoku that focuses my brain. I mean, it is very prosaic. I mean, it's not an interesting ritual. Like, there's no, like, sacrifices, and, you know, like,
nobody said you have to sacrifice. I'm just curious how
help,
you do it.
Help.
I kind of enjoy that it's so mundane, because
Yeah.
I think there's a romanticization very often about creative arts or writing, or like, I don't know.
Sure is. Yeah.
You walk naked in a field and get inspiration and do something with it. But it's actually just very hands-on.
Yeah, no, and it is very, I mean, you know, just, you know, you put your ass in the chair and get to work, turn the computer on, and, you know, and write for 3 hours or 4 hours until, you know, I'm exhausted, and then do the other stuff. But it's, yeah, there's no romance involved. zero romance involved, and even going for a walk, you know, all the writers, and then they walked for 30 miles to the next town to, you know, or whatever. You know, if I walk, which I enjoy doing and walk a lot, I'm not thinking about my books. You know, I'm looking at all the stuff around me. I mean, it's a distraction. You know, when I write, I mean, I need to be, you know, in a room, preferably without a window and without anything except
your mind.
Yeah, and my laptop, I guess, and a chair. And, well, yeah, there are some things, but yeah, it's very little. Yeah.
Well, we're gonna get distracted for a little while because we're gonna look at the trailer, the extended trailer of Women Talking. Can I see, Chauvin? Has anybody seen the movie, read the book, knows what it is about? No? Do you want to introduce it?
Women Talking. Do you want me to do it in Dutch?
Yes, please do.
Kidding. I wish I could. Women Talking is this book, and it is an imagined response, essentially, to a series of rapes and attacks, crimes that occurred in a real place in Bolivia, in a Mennonite colony. It's called the Manitoba Colony in Bolivia. And there, just about every single girl and woman in the colony was raped repeatedly and attacked, knocked out with an animal tranquilizer at night. And this went on for years until, and there were all sorts of stories, narratives given to the women that they were being, by the elders in the community, that they were being punished for their sins, that they were being attacked by demons or ghosts, that they were imagining it. It was their wild female imagination making stuff up. And until one day, one of them was caught by a woman, a couple of women, and then, you know, it all unraveled, and lo and behold, it was real men doing the attacking and not ghosts. And the book is about eight women from the community, two families, generations of women from these two families, the Lowens and the Friesens, teenage girls to older grandmothers, meeting together over a short period of time, 48 hours, I think, in a loft in the colony. The men in the colony have gone away to bail out the rapists who have been taken away and put in jail and are awaiting trial. And the women get together, these women, sort of representatives of the community, these families get together to decide what they're going to do, and they have narrowed it down to three things. They'll stay and fight, or they'll do nothing, or they'll leave. And that's what these women are talking about, what they're going to do. And there's a guy, his name is August Epp, and he is the narrator of the book, and he is taking the minutes. He's been given this task. It's you know, a kind of irrelevant task that he's been given by one of the women. The narrator is, I'm going on a lot about this, you probably just want to watch the damn thing already, but
it's kind of nice to hear it in your words, actually.
Anyway, yeah, and so, okay, so you know, and in order to keep him safe, you know, he's suicidal, and one of the women, Ona, sees this and says, you know, August, just come with us, and he's kept safe by the women in the loft, at least for the time that they're there, and then he's given a task. He knows how to, and again, in my mind, you know, it's the same thing. You know, the women in my mind would be speaking Plattdeutsch, the language, Low German of the Mennonites, an unwritten language. This narrator, this minute taker, August, can translate to English because he's left the colony and been educated in English, and it's a role reversal. You know, he's there to listen and to learn, and the women are busy, you know, deciding what it is in fact they're going to do.
Yes, and we'll talk more about that. But first, we're going to watch the trailer of the movie. it's still painful to watch, I think. And I thought it was painful to read. I thought it was a rough read, not because of your writing, but because of just the facts. Was it a rough ride?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, I would say for sure, like, yeah, holding the women, the real women, you know, the women, that holding that pain and you know, and the urgency of their conversation, their discussion. I mean, yeah, it was like towards the end, I really did feel like, you know, my head or something would explode for sure. It was really important to, yeah, to finish, and you know, and that was, you know, the pain that I had writing it. So we can imagine, you know, the pain of the women living it.
Yeah. What was your assignment to yourself writing this book?
Well, I guess in that case, this one was, you know, I was, you know, basically August, and his assignment in writing it and taking the minutes, writing what was said at this meeting, of course, was given to him by Ona, so by me to Ona, to him, to me, and that was yeah. And that was the assignment.
Yeah. Was the conversation that the women are having, was that also a little bit of the conversation you had in your head when you decided to leave? Or am I romanticizing something here?
No, I don't. There was never any. I never had to think about leaving. It was painful. It was definitely painful, not just for myself, but for, you know, my father especially, and other, you know, members of my family and community. But it was always, you know, I knew that I would have to. Like, there was never any question. There was never any debate, not even with myself. Yeah.
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 And it's still painful. Sorry, I have trouble not feeling the pain while talking to you of these women and the injustice that has been done to them. You get a call one day by a movie producer. How does it? Because you've written it. It has an impact, and it has such a big impact that somebody wants to translate it to the big screen. Mm-hmm. How did that go about? An editor in the UK gave a copy of the book to his friend Frances McDormand, and she read it, and so she was the one who first was interested. Yeah, yeah. She's one of the actresses that you just saw.
Scarface Jantz she plays that role. She was originally going to play a different role, but then decided that she would play that. So. Yeah, and that's
so we think it to her.
Yeah, so that's how it started. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
And then, because I know that your first major was actually in cinema, right? In film.
Yeah, in film studies.
Yeah. So was there a secret ambition to be on a big screen, or like?
Not to be on the big screen, but I had definitely, when I started studying, I had thought that I would like to write, like make movies.
Right.
Yeah.
And so were you involved? Were you enthusiastic right away? Were you demanding? Were you?
I don't think I was demanding, and I wasn't too involved either. They asked me if I would be. So Sarah Polley, then and Sarah Polley had also expressed interest almost sort of simultaneously, you know, with Frances McDormand at the same time.
Yeah, and Sarah Polley is the one who did the screenplay, and she actually won an Oscar, I think, for it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, adapted screenplay. She wrote and directed, and so she and I talked a lot And we talked a lot during the whole process, you know, and so I was involved in that way. You know, I could see some of the auditions.
So what do you talk about? I mean,
we talk about the script, we talk about the story, we talk about the characters, we talk about everything.
Sounds like you were very involved.
I guess so, but I didn't. But they had asked me if, you know, I wanted to write, like co-write, you know, which I absolutely didn't want to do.
Why?
I mean, I had already written it, you know.
Right.
And also writing for the movies is a totally different thing. I mean, the you know, all the producers, all of the people involved. I mean, you know, there's so much pressure and it's like a, you know, Hollywood thing, and there's just it's very difficult to work under those circumstances, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, Sarah Polley did a great job, but it's not my thing. And you know, a lot of people coming together with their input in the script, and Sarah was up against that, you know, from day one, and forced to do a lot of things, you know. And but you know, for the most part, I mean, she did make the movie that she wanted to make, and but yeah, I just didn't want to get involved in that, and yeah. So, but it was fun to, you know, and I went on to the set and met the, you know, cast and crew,
What's it like? Because you write, and writing is a very specific, detailed craft, and you pick every word in sequences, and it's all you. And then you go to a movie set where there's a gazillion people, and they're all doing something with your baby. Like
it's really amazing. Yeah, it's really kind of a surreal thing, you know. It's like the attention to detail. I mean, a lot of the women's houses were built like actual houses, you know, from scratch, with all of the things that these women would have in their houses in the colony, and these were houses that never were shown in the movie, and there was never any intention of filming them or of having. They just were there so that the characters would go into them and be able to, you know, inhabit their roles, you know, that all that stuff's fascinating to me.
Kind of method acting, like you are.
Yeah, maybe, and you know, even the crops. There was a, you know, outdoor location. Most of it was shot in Toronto in a big thing, but they also shot their outdoor shots, and the crops in that on that farm, a big farm, where they planted the crops that were, you know, mentioned in the book, like, to, even though nobody, I mean, see, you know, I mean, you would have to be some sort of agricultural, you know, like expert to say, oh, that's that crop or whatever, but, you know, but that's what they did, and that just really, you know, I thought that was amazing.
There's well, they have a lot of eye for detail, as do you in your writing. It's like, do you remember the first time did you see all the edits?
I saw some of them. Yeah, you know, they send these films to you, like with a non-disclosure, you know, like these non-disclosure, you know, whatever that's called. You know, you have to sign on all these things, and then you get a kind of a version of it. Sort of grainy. It's not finished. It has you know, and there's a thing across it, so you can't send it to somebody. I can't, like, hey, I'm gonna email, hey, all my friends, like, hey, check this out. Like, you can't do it, and it only lasts for a certain. You can only watch it between, you know, like this hour and this hour of this evening. It's all like Hollywood, you know. I mean, they're very.
It seems so not you, Hollywood.
No, yeah, yeah.
So what's it like to see your work in a Hollywood production? Are you happy with it? Is it easy to let go?
For the most part, yeah. And I had to, you know, remind myself of that, and, you know, talking with other writers who'd had their stuff adapted, and, you know, just that, like that, you know, where you just have to say, okay, you know, this is Sarah's movie, and I was very happy with it. Yeah, I mean, there were some choices that she made that I wouldn't have made, but again, you know, there was
what?
Pressure and
Name one.
So, yeah. Oh, I don't know. I mean, you know, the song that was used. You know, they changed that. You know, the narrator was a girl, one of the girls in the loft, as opposed to August. Sarah had shot the whole thing with August as the narrator, and as at the last minute, you know, some, you know, producers had said, well, you know, this is going to be tough to have a movie called Women Talking with a male narrator. Even though there were, you know, reasons which, you know, for the narrator being male, which Sarah knew and agreed with, and so that was a tough one. That was probably even though it works, it's good, you know, but it gives it a different, there's a different feeling that you get from it, for one thing, because if you're hearing the story being told from the past, from the future, I mean, then you kind of already know that, like, do you know what I mean? Like it's a timing thing. Like it's I don't know. It worked.
Well, I guess Hollywood has really different rules, and it's all, and you want to sell it, and etc.
Yeah.
So, but this was not the first of your works that was put was translated into the screen, because All My Puny Sorrows was
also, yeah. Made into a movie by a guy, another Canadian named Mike McGowan, and I also was very happy with that, and was involved in a certain, you know, to a certain degree, you know, a little less because it was shot during COVID and mostly written during COVID too, and so I didn't. You know, but yeah, and it was a small budget, you know, shot in a few weeks, and certainly not a superstar cast like, you know, like that one. So it was a different thing, but I thought that he did an amazing job, and you know, just captured again, you know, like the emotional honesty of the like.
So who should play Elvira? Who should play her mom?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe she should.
Ooh, would she?
Oh yes.
Oh yes.
she would in a heartbeat. But you know. But yeah.
I mean, it's a book that screams to be translated into a movie, right?
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe. Yeah.
I think so.
We'll see.
It's
yeah.
It's like My Little Sunshine. Well, anyways, it's
a
Little
Miss Sunshine.
Thank you. Sunshine. Yeah, it's kind of or I guess the Ted Lasso of novels, as the LA Times put it. Have you been? Did you have a call yet? And
yeah, there are people interested in optioning it. Yeah, so we'll see how that all goes. You know, these things, you never know.
Yeah. So, and I also heard that, I guess we're giving away all kinds of new stuff. There might be an opera done for women talking.
Well, again, I don't know. Is like you, yeah. There's interest, you know, theater, you know, and things like that.
I don't know. I mean, it must. Do you remember your first novel coming out and
yes.
Scraping, probably?
Scraping
like
by? You mean financially? Yeah. Not just with the first, second.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Did you ever imagine there would be movies and operas?
No,
and I don't know.
No. With my first book, no, I never imagined there would be a second book. I never, nothing like that. Never, ever in a million years. No.
Is there something you dream of, in terms of?
No, no, never. No. I mean, I'm grateful that there's interest, you know, but. And the feeling of having it, of, you know, again, that conversation that I have, that I can have, you know, even if it's not something like like literally a conversation, but just knowing that there are readers and or people watching the movie or whatever, you know, that's a good feeling. But it's not something that you ever think about, you know, in writing. It's never, it's not the reason for writing. It's, I mean, the reason for writing is definitely to share it with readers, but not to imagine anything beyond that.
Speaking of readers, there are so many audience. Are there any questions? Really? Yeah, there we go. Even kijken. Mieke, kan jij die kant doen? Dan loop ik die kant op.
You go first?
No, you can go first.
Thank you, Miriam, for this fascinating talk. You mentioned, just in passing, you called yourself a Mennonite. And we know that you consciously chose to leave the community. Do you still regard yourself as a Mennonite?
Yeah, absolutely.
Even having left?
Yeah, yeah, definitely, and you know, there's some debate, you know, particularly. I mean, I am a Mennonite. I don't know how to describe it. I mean, you know, any other Mennonite, particularly from the group of, like, I'm a Russian Mennonite, and you know, other Russian Mennonites, but also, you know, the Swiss Mennonites that, you know, whatever, the groups of Mennonites that came, you know, to North America, to Canada, to central Canada, to the Midwest of the States, to, you know, I mean, they're constantly moving. These Mennonites would just see my name, you know, and know that I was a Mennonite. You know, I grew up, you know, my people are, you know, we're Mennonites. I don't know. I mean, I have compared it to, it's a little bit like, you know, like being Jewish. You know, there are secular Jews and Orthodox Jews and conservative Jews and you know, and I'm, but, you know, but they're all Jewish. You know, and I guess you could call me a secular Mennonite. I mean, I'm not a member of a Mennonite church. But I was baptized into a Mennonite church. But there are a lot of Mennonite churches all over the place, sort of kind of new Mennonite churches that would say that I'm not a Mennonite because I'm no longer a member of a Mennonite church. But most Mennonites would not say that. They would say that, of course, I'm a Mennonite.
How does being or identifying as a Mennonite translate into your daily life?
I don't know. I think in every way and in no way. I mean, it's just if, I mean, okay, well, my relationship with my mother, for instance, who, you know, she is a member of a Mennonite church, and she's a Mennonite, but she also would, you know, her friends, you know, are Mennonites. My closest friends are Mennonites. I mean, you know, it's sort of, it's just kind of who we are. I don't know how it, you know, I don't know how it really manifests, other than, you know, there's a whole Mennonite kind of network, like a kind of grapevine, and so we hear of each other and, you know, what's happening within the Mennonite, you know, global Mennonite community in terms of, I don't know, various things, schisms, and, you know, theological, you know, discussions, rules of churches changing, some becoming more traditional, intolerant, closed, you know, others have, you know, for instance, being open to having even female ministers, for instance. I mean, that is a very liberal Mennonite church, the kind that my mother now attends in Toronto. So, you know, there are just different kind of ways of being Mennonite.
And do your kids or your grandkids identify that way?
No, I mean, my grandkids are a little. My kids, yeah, they're Mennonite. They're Mennonites. Yeah.
Do they go to church?
No.
No. Yeah.
No.
I thought so, but
yeah,
you know.
No.
Right.
You know, you sort of have to inoculate them a little bit. So, and I think they got that, you know, from, you know, they would go to church when they were little with my mom. So that was good.
Right.
Just get little tastes, so
Right.
it doesn't become something that's really, you know, kind of exciting and glamorous when they get older. It's like they're good.
Got it.
Yeah.
I saw there were more questions. I'm coming up. Are the questions gone? Really? No. There you go.
Hi. Some authors say that the hardest part of starting to write, or writing in general, is finding an editor that shares and understands you. Would you agree, disagree, and how did you find yours?
To find an editor, yeah. I mean, that relationship with, you know, writer-editor is so important, so intimate in a sense, and to have, you know, the right editor, an editor who you know, gets what you're doing and likes what you're doing. An editor who doesn't impose his or her own stuff into the, narrative, but helps you to, sort of saves you from yourself in a sense, and, helps to, helps you to say what you're saying, but better. It's, yeah, it's not, there are, I mean, that relationship is just so important, and I don't think it's easy to find a relationship like that necessarily. I have an editor who I love working with, and have been working with for a while now, and I kind of think to that point that, okay, when she retires, I'll retire, even though, I mean, I can't retire, but yeah, it is. And you're right. It is so important, and just to be able to talk about that stuff and know that you're understood, and know that that person's interest is in making the book better.
If you say you can't retire, is that because you're a writer and you will never stop writing, or that's just that there's not going to be any bread to eat?
Both.
Oh, both. Okay. Yeah. Okay, got it. I saw some hands somewhere in the middle. Yes.
When I think about all of your books, they're kind of like points in a constellation, and I wondered if you had anything that you could share about how you see the connection between the novels.
Between my different books?
Mm.
Yeah, I think that, that's a beautiful way of putting it. I definitely, I think there is a connection between all of them. I almost feel as though, like like we were saying, that they're all sort of like one big book, but and all connected, and sort of kind of from my own experience, in a sense, my times in my life, my family, my friends, my world, I don't know. So just recently, this is kind of an interesting thing. I find that I started seeing this psychoanalyst, and I don't know how long I'm going to do this. I still don't quite understand what's happening in the thing, but I feel like I could just, say to my psychoanalyst, like, rather than me coming here every week and giving you all this money, why don't you just read all my books? And then, like, so, but I haven't found the courage to say that. I might be out a psychoanalyst if I were to say that.
So why now? I mean, you've had enough in your lifetime to have started 30 years before.
I know. I don't know. I mean, it's expensive. Like, I had to decide, am I going to take my family to Mexico for Christmas, or am I going to see a shrink for a year? So I thought, I'll see the psychoanalyst. And I told my family this, and they were like, good choice. So, so we'll do the Mexico thing another year, maybe, hopefully. But I don't know. I guess I was reading about it, and it just sort of, if the pieces fell into place. I've thought about it before. It's a really interesting process.
Is the next book going to be about a psychoanalyst and a writer?
I don't think so. I don't think, in the same way, that my psychoanalyst shouldn't, right? Talk about me. Maybe I'm not supposed to. I still don't know really how it all works. Like, I never know what to do, like how to sit, like how to, like when, like I ramble on in the same way that I'm doing here, and then I get these little signs that, oh, the time's up. So should we make another appointment? I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, okay. And then I go, and then I'm like, okay, well, what just happened? I just blathered on, and
How long have you been seeing this person?
A few months, but I'm gonna give it a year, because
That's an assignment.
Yeah, it's an assignment. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Are you getting anywhere?
I don't know. A psychoanalyst is a Lacanian psychoanalyst.
A what?
A Lacanian psychoanalyst.
What's that?
I don't even know that either. I'm like, it's just baffling to me. You know, Jacques Lacan, the French philosopher, and yeah, so you know, incorporating that Lacanianism into you know, the. So I'm sure there are people here who could explain what that is, but
Yeah, we can do that over drinks.
yeah, yeah.
I guess, well, something I find hard about writing is how to end it.
Yeah.
How do you end it? How do you know when you're done?
Yeah. Well, again, it you know, it sort of comes kind of to a natural, like there's an arc in my writing that seems to be a pattern, that the way that I write, it's always this length, more or less, and then it just kind of, like, I think it's a rhythm in my mind. It's a rhythm in the work, like, you know, like a concert or something.
I realize that I asked you this question in a different way. What I'm trying to say is, when you start writing, do you know how the book is going to end?
Oh, no.
Did you know did you know with Fight Night that Elvira would pass?
Not really. No, but now you've given it away. I'm just kidding.
No, but
it's obvious. Yeah. Come on, yeah.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I think one of the things I really like about it is basically, you know from page 1 that she will not make it to the end, yet I still want to read it.
Exactly, absolutely, and you know, and because, you know, so symbolic of, you know, giving up the fight, of knowing when to stop fighting, you know, which is, I think, an art in and of itself, you know, form of grace, really, but I didn't actually know exactly, and women talking too. I remember thinking that at first, you know, really, as soon as I heard about, you know, these rapes, and my late sister and I were talking about this back in, you know, 2008, 2009, and and you know, I had all these ideas. I had wanted to write about it. I didn't know how or what, and then my sister died. So then I knew that the next thing I would write would be about my sister. I needed to write about that, and that was All My Puny Sorrows. And then I had to go back to women talking. And during that whole process, I had various thoughts about how it would end, and one of them was, you know, just like a bloodbath.
Oh, really?
just like slaughter, like just dry, like just some of the women coming together. Like, obviously, I was crazy. I mean, like, just these women coming, you know, driving these men into, you know, maybe some pit or something, and something like that. And, you know, and I have to laugh at myself, of course. And that's, you know, that's a ridiculous thought, and it's not realistic, and it's an emotional, you know, response, obviously, and that, and violence after violence, you know, only creates more violence, and it's not the answer, and it wasn't the answer either in the book.
Yeah, Fight Night. You just told me. You really wanted to keep this title because there was a little argument with the publisher about the title.
Yeah. And
I think it's an appropriate way to end tonight. You want to share the story?
With Fight Night, about the title Fight Night? Yeah, I guess, you know, my publishers had thought that it sounded too much like Fight Club, you know, and that it was sort of masculine sounding. And that, you know, that maybe I should call it something else. And I've had that debate with my editors and publishers almost every single time I write a book, that everybody's a little bit like, oh, this title, I don't know about this title. And then sometimes I'll change it and sometimes I won't. And this time I didn't change it. And I had to fight for Fight Night, and and I thought it was a good title because it rhymes, it's sort of childlike in a sense. I mean, Swiv's 9 years old, 9-year-old narrator, Fight Night, and but it also, to me, represents, you know, the end of a fight, putting to bed that fight, a particular fight, whatever fight it is that we're fighting, and you know, closing the curtains on that, knowing when that's necessary. So it has that meaning for me as well.
Yeah. Let's end this conversation. I want to say let's end this fight, but it's not a fight. But I feel it's a good time to end our conversation. I want to thank you a lot for sharing everything. Very curious to hear. I'm just very curious, very much looking forward to your new book. Also, having had this conversation, I'm going to see if I can pinpoint whatever was happening in your mind.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Next.
I'm cheaper than your psychoanalyst, I think.
We'll see. We'll see. It's
yeah.
wacky.
So I want to give the floor to Tracy Adams, and I want to give a big hand for Miriam Toews.
Thank you very much.
You expected Tracy, but you're getting Ian instead. Thank you both for a wonderful evening. Miriam will, of course, be available to sign books in the lobby, and I hope you join us all for a drink there. It is a perfect way to close off our season before we see each other all again in the new year, or at least that's my hope. And if you want to get even more involved in the John Adams, then consider joining our friends or family, supporting us as a member. I see many of you here tonight, so thank you so much for coming. And I would also recommend you join Dialogues, which seems perfect given the conversation and the topics we just had. Dialogues is our new book and media club. You can speak to Aiden outside, who has a lovely poster there, and you can find out more about what we do there. And if you'll permit me, before we head to drinks and a book signing, there are just a couple of words of thanks that I'd like to say. First and foremost, to our wonderful team at the John Adams Institute, actually. To Tracy Metz, Mika Blaker, and Aiden Correa. We're a small team, and that's a beautiful thing, and it's an immense pleasure to work with all of you on the program and all of the wonderful other things that we do. So thank you all for that. It makes coming to work so enjoyable, and for that I'm very grateful. And that gratitude extends to all of you as well. The John Adams community, of course, has had a wonderful year, if I may say so myself. We started and ended with two fascinating authors, both masters of their genres, and though Bret Easton Ellis and Miriam Toews could not be further apart from one another, I think it shows the appetite in our community to see the world, or our world, reflected in fiction. But we also hosted a trivia night for the first time ever, and we've been thrilled to see audiences coming back in great numbers after our COVID hiatus for folks like Matthew Desmond, Nicole Hannah-Jones, Lonnie Bunch, Jill Lepore, Kim Stanley Robinson, and Walter Isaacson. So thank you, all of you here, and anyone who may listen online later, for sticking with us. We're absolutely honored to have a steadfast community who are keen to take on big topics and to engage with the world around us, because I guess that's really what we promote here, and that's what we are, right? A community held together by our collective interest in things that are bigger than ourselves. That goes not only for our audience, but also, of course, for our treasured family and friends and our corporate sponsors. So thank you all for your support, because it really does mean the world to us. So I would say enjoy your holiday slumber. Catch us back in January. On the 31st of that month, we'll have an evening with journalist Franklin Foer from The Atlantic, who'll be coming to speak about his latest biography on Joe Biden, The Last Politician. Perhaps there should be a question mark there. By then, election fever, of course, in the US will be kicking off, so please don't miss out on Foer's razor-sharp narrative as he puts the Biden presidency in the perspective of the upcoming election, something I think is on all of our minds. And do keep an eye on our website for more event announcements in the coming months. I don't want to give everything away, but I do think we have a pretty impressive lineup ahead, and we cannot wait to welcome you back in the new year. Thank you.